Alright everybody, welcome back to part 2 of the lower tier Pokemon buffs discussion video for Generation 9. Hopefully you guys are having a good day. Now before we get into the part 2 of this video, if you guys haven't checked out the last part where I talked about a good amount of Pokemon, I had to split this video into 3 parts essentially. Go check that out. I'll probably have a card thing working at the top right hand corner of the screen hopefully, and also check out our latest Rivals to the Top video that I did with my good friend 16 Gallon. Is on his channel, so check that out as well. Subscribe to his channel as well, highly appreciate it. But either way, let's get into the more juicy things of today's video, continuing to talk about all of the buffs that these lower tiered Pokemon have gotten in Generation 9. So let's start off with Hariyama, for example. We're doing this by alphabetical order. The last Pokemon I talked about in the last video was Grumpig. So on to Hariyama. Now Hariyama has the new move called Headlong Rush, which I believe is basically just ground double edge, to my knowledge. I can definitely just double check that on the dock. Smashes in the top. Yeah, it's ground CC actually. It's ground CC. So Hariyama gets it now. And it also gets Drain Punch. Now, Drain Punch is a lot more important than Headlong Rush, in my opinion, because Hariyama still has Earthquake, so it doesn't really care about having the new ground alternative option. But Drain Punch is big for a fighting type as bulky as Hariyama is. Now, if you've looked over the generations with fighting types and Drain Punch, a lot of these frail Pokemon get Drain Punch, and there's been a lot of Pokemon that haven't been able to utilize Drain Punch, like Hariyama. Like Hariyama desperately needed Drain Punch because it has such a massive HP stat, and especially when you're going more bulky Hariyama sets like Assault Vest or just straight leftovers, like Drain Punch would be nice to use over CC because you don't have any other stab fighting option that you'd want to run over Drain Punch. Like CC lowers your defenses, you already don't really want to be dropping your defenses when you're going a bit more of a bulkier spread. So Drain Punch is going to be very big on this. Headlong Rush not so much because you have Earthquake, for example. But yeah, Hariyama with Drain Punch will be very good in the lower tiers for sure, especially with like a gut set. Like you can basically pull off what a Conkeldurr does essentially. Like you don't have the same attack stat, but you are much bulkier than Conkeldurr, so gut sets are a lot better, especially with Drain Punch. So yeah, Hariyama is looking pretty decent. Now onto Haxorus. Now you're probably thinking Haxorus isn't a lower tier Pokemon, but I'm pretty sure it's like RU ban list or something. At least it said there in that dex. But this isn't really a particular buff for Haxorus, but it does have Iron Head. Now it usually had Poison Jab to hit Fairy types, which was well light enough for Haxorus, to be honest. And Mold Breaker, you know, you're at +2 Scale Shot, and you know, Clef, unaware Clef would not be able to wall you. But just having Iron Head as a secondary, you know, option to hit Fairy types was fine because you did have Iron Tail, but at the same time Iron Tail has really bad accuracy. So Iron Head is like just here. There's not really much else to say about Haxorus. Like Scale Shot is gone, which is overall nerf, but overall like Haxorus's viability isn't going to change that significantly, to be honest. Like Power Creep, it will feel Power Creep for sure, but it's still overall quite a good Pokemon, to be honest. Especially like if you run in Gen 9 that deck, you'll still have access to Swords Dance Scale Shot. So Iron Head is really a negligible buff to it, to be honest. Now on to more interesting things. We have Calm Mind Jolteon. All of the evolutions got Calm Mind, even the ones that have a higher attack stat than the special attack stat. But this is more relevant for Jolteon because it's the fastest evolution, 130 speed. Like there isn't that many Pokemon now that are able to tangle Jolteon's speed tier now. So Jolteon's going to be a lot better in the lower tiers. And I don't know if we'll have enough time to experiment with terastallizing in the lower tiers. We'll probably get banned before any sort of lower tier will form where Jolteon is actually quite a viable Pokemon. But in case you wanted to try Jolteon in OU, for example, while you know terastallizing is still around, Tera Ice is obviously the move of choice and the typing of choice because you have Bolt Beam combination, especially the fact that you actually have something to boost your special attack stat, which isn't bad by any means. 110 special attack is pretty solid on a Pokemon like this. Jolteon's issue is just his lack of coverage, to be honest. And yeah, Hidden Power was something that I relied on in the past before Generation 8. Obviously, in Generation 8, Jolteon had no sort of coverage outside of Shadow Ball, but having Terra Blast, Ice rounds up his coverage perfectly, and Jolteon becomes quite dangerous, especially with its speed tiers. Very, very fast. So yeah, Calm Mind's a decent addition to Jolteon's move pool. Now, onto Krookodile now. Krookodile lost Knock, quite unfortunate, but it still has Darkest Lariat to my knowledge, and it has Gunk Shot now, so it has an option to hit Fairy type Pokemon. And at the top of my head, like, I can't think of any premier Fairy types now because Clefable's gone, the Tapus are gone. So, like, you know, you could just get away with running your, you know, stab options, but at the same time, Gunk Shot is there to hit the Fairy type Pokemon, you know. So this is a decent move pool addition into Krookodile's, you know, repertoire. You know, like, Gunk Shot is a strong, powerful move that is able to hit Fairy types for super effective damage. So overall, Krookodile is benefiting from Gunk Shot, to be honest. Now, Luxray gets Trailblaze now, and you know, this isn't really a big buff for it. Like, most things get Trailblaze now, but Luxray is going to be running agility, like Flame of Gut sets, to be honest. Like, you still have agility, you still have facade, you still have wild charge, and then Terra Blast Ice again, for example. You know, you have that, you know, Bolt Beam coverage that Luxray would like to have. It does have Ice Fang, but at the same time, have you seen Ice Fang's base power compared to Terra Blast? 65 versus 80 is very, very noticeable damage, and having a much stronger option to hit, you know, ground types for super effective is basically what Luxray needs to be really, really threatening. Like, Ice Fang isn't even threatening out Fizz Def Hippowdon, for example, even at a +1 attack boost. So having Terra Blast would easily be able to 2-hit kill Hippowdon at +1. You can correct me if that calc is wrong, but it just seems like you'll be able to get like noticeable 2-hit kills on Hippowdon now. So yeah, Luxray is chilling with you know. But overall, yeah, the is more Luxray's terrestrializing potential more than Trailblaze, but it's just an additional move in its move pool. Now, onto something I never thought I would see, but Masquerain has Hurricane now, so they saw how Butterfree kind of benefited from Hurricane in Generation 8, so they're like, why can't we just give this to Masquerain, for example? And Masquerain can utilize it a lot better than Butterfree. You're faster, you're stronger, and you also have Intimidate, which helps you out on your bulk side of things, because Masquerain is a pretty frail Pokemon, but having Intimidate means it can live a hit or two, you know, so it's very, very strong. So it's going to be running Quiver Dance, obviously. It has Hurricane now, obviously Bug Buzz and Hydro Pump. It's a weird thing that Masquerain has Hydro Pump, but it's actually pretty nice for it to, you know, have that neutral option versus Steel types, because it dual stabs, obviously ruled by Steel types. So yeah, this is going to be pretty big for Masquerain, obviously. And yeah, I'm happy to see where it goes. You can even terrestrialize into a water type, for example, and take advantage of getting Stab Hydro Pump. That's going to be a very strong option, especially against Steel types, because you get a Steel resistance when you terrestrialize into a water type. So yeah, Masquerain is going to be chilling in the lower tiers for sure. Don't know if Hurricane is that game changing. Like, Hurricane can still miss and is much less reliable than Air Slash, but you know, it's just being a lot stronger with that 100 base attack, which is what Masquerain really wants. So this is probably the biggest one of the video, guys. Medicham. Now, do you know what Medicham has? You really think Medicham is one of the strongest Pokemon where it's held back by speed tier and lack of coverage, but it gets CC now. This really just changes the game for this Pokemon. It gets CC. That's all Medicham needed for about, you know, 6 generations. It needed CC, because high jump kick obviously is very, you know, there's a lot of risk to high jump kick. Number one, it can miss. Number two, if you miss, you lose half of your HP. If someone protects on you, you lose half of your HP. If someone switches in the ghost type, you lose half of your HP. CC is riskless. Riskless. Hear the words risk and less is riskless. If you click CC into the ghost type, who cares? You don't take half your HP. If you CC into the ghost type, who cares? You don't lose half your HP. This is so big for a Pokemon like Medicham, which naturally just gets 438 attack just because of its ability. Like, it's insane. This one's going to be disgusting in the lower tiers, especially with a Choice Scarf set. Like, Scarf Medicham was already something that, you know, past generations of RU and NU saw, and it was a pretty good Scarfer. But having something that's spammable at CC now, like, nothing really wants to be coming in on this. But in case of what other moves it gets, it also gets Ice Kick. I said Ice Kick. Axe Kick, actually. Yeah, Axe Kick. So Axe Kick is basically a weaker high jump kick that Hisuian Lilligant gets as well, but Axe Kick is really not being used over CC, nor High Jump Kick even. Like, Axe Kick is a weaker High Jump Kick. Like, there's no reason to use Axe Kick, but it is in its move pool, so I kind of have to respect it. And obviously, in terms of terrestrializing potential, I guess, you know, you can go Terra Blast Ghost to actually hit Psychic types, which obviously you have a lot of issue with, because Fighting and Psychic is obviously walled by Psychic type Pokemon. So Terra Blasting into a Ghost type pretty much fixes all of Medicham's issues, you know. So yeah, this one is going to be pretty solid. Like, it could be potentially like banned from RU or something, because I don't see Medicham in NU whatsoever. This one with CC is crazy. Like, wow, it's actually so cool how it got CC now finally. So yeah, that's nice. Now moving on to Mesprit. Mesprit got a signature move in Legends Arceus, which is called Mystical Power. Now, I have not played Legends Arceus, so I'm going to have to check quickly what Mystical Power does. Oh wait, I did not type that in properly. The user attacks by emitting a mysterious power, and it also boosts the attack stat guaranteed. So this is a new move on Mesprit. 70 base power, 90% accuracy, and yeah, Mesprit having something like this is pretty good. Now, at the same time, Mesprit does have Nasty Plot, so you're just probably wondering what's the point of running Mystical Fire when you have your own setup, you know, option in Nasty Plot. And I mean, if you really want to, you know, get to +3 special attack just like that after a Nasty Plot and 1 Mystical Power, then fair enough. I want more power to you, you know. But it's just an interesting move that Mesprit has. Same applies to Azelf and Uxie. Azelf will probably benefit a bit more from that because it's a bit faster, and you could run Specs plus Mystical Power. Now, I know Psychic type moves aren't necessarily the best to lock into because there is 1 immunity for it, but at the same time, you know, there's no pursuit trapping, so it's not like you can get that punished for, you know, locking yourself into the Mystical Power. But yeah, this is an interesting move that Mesprit has. So yeah, not too sure we'll see much use because, you know, you still have Nasty Plot, Psychic and Psyshock as, you know, stab options. But yeah, it's a nice move to have. Alright, on to the next move pool changes. We do have Mismagius. Mismagius now has Draining Kiss. Now, this isn't really a big buff whatsoever. Like, Mismagius already was not struggling on the fairy coverage department at all. It has Dazzling Gleam, so Draining Kiss really doesn't do anything for it. Like, Draining Kiss is more of a good move on Pokemon like Comfey, obviously, because I had Triarch. It had enough bulk to, you know, set up CM and then just recover all of its HP back because, you know, it has priority healing. And also things like Tapu Fini, which could go Calm Mind, Iron Defense set to Draining Kiss. But Mismagius doesn't really have that luxury. It's not particularly bulky. It has low HP, low defense, decent special defense, but Draining Kiss is just not a move that you're going to be running on it. You're just better off going Nasty Plot, Dazzling Gleam, Shadow Ball, T-Bolt. Like, that's really all Mismagius is going to be doing. But Draining Kiss is an interesting addition to his move pool, so I might as well mention it. Now, this next one is also something that doesn't really affect the viability of this Pokemon much, but Mudsdale has Stone Edge now. It's crazy how a fully evolved ground type like this didn't have Stone Edge in the first place, but yeah, I guess that, you know, offensive Mudsdale has better Edgequake combination now because Rock Slide is noticeably weaker than Stone Edge. So yeah, that's really all Mudsdale has in terms of buffs. It didn't really lose anything, nor did it gain anything outside of Stone Edge. I guess it has terrestrialization potential, but again, that is a lot to go into. So yeah, Stone Edge Mudsdale, quite interesting. Now onto something a bit more interesting, by the way. We have Muck with Muck has T-Spikes now, which is pretty cool. Having T-Spikes, finally. They're just giving T-Spikes out to everything now at this point. And then it also has Drain Punch. Now, Muck seems like a Pokemon that should have always had Drain Punch, but it didn't really have Drain Punch. So, what does this change for Muck in general? Now, Muck's niche in the lower tiers was being a bulky, you know, special defensive Pokemon. It had naturally high HP and naturally high special defense, so it always managed to wall a certain amount of, you know, special attackers. Now, it also ran a pretty solid curse set depending on the meta you're playing, and you know, Drain Punch might be useful to help out with that because Muck's issue was the fact that it was walled by Steel types, and it couldn't really do anything to punish ground types. Like, you had no like good moves to hit ground types and you're completely walled by steel types. Having Drain Punch really changes that because if you have enough defense boost and attack boost, then steel types really can't do much to you, really. Like, unless they have ground coverage, and even at that point, Muck might have enough boost to not really care and just recover the health back. So having Drain Punch really helps the Curse Muck sets, and yeah, it's pretty nice to see that this mod actually has Drain Punch now. So yeah, that's pretty nice for Muck. Now onto Oricorio. Oricorio gets Quiver Dance now, and this is hype as hell. I'm not gonna lie. Oricorio is the dancer Pokemon. I don't think that's its category, but it's the Pokemon that has the ability Dancer. Now, Dancer only activates when other Pokemon use dance moves, but the fact that it didn't have Quiver Dance on its, debut generation is kind of crazy, to be honest, because, like, it has, I'm pretty sure it has Swords Dance, so why didn't it get Quiver Dance? Its signature move is also called Revelation Dance. Like, wow, it's so crazy how this one didn't get it, and it's actually, it has the stat spread to actually make it work. 98 special attack is decent, 93 speed is also decent, so like Oricorio is having a good time. Now I did choose the fire one, and obviously the fire one is not the best one, but it might actually get a bit better now because fire flying is pretty strong offensively. Flying is walled, by steel, is walled by electric, is walled by rock. Fire handles the steel and electric matchup. You're still walled by rock types, but the other typings, just help out with that. Now, you don't really have the best coverage. All your special coverage is literally coming from your dual stabs. But obviously, everything gets Tera Blast now, so you can obviously terrestrialize around that. You probably want to go, like, Tera Blast Water on, like, the fire one, so, you don't have a water weakness anymore. You still have an electric weakness, but, you have your stab revelation dance to help out with that. In terms of the ghost one, like talking about all of them, like obviously I don't think Pau is really that good. Like it's just better to use Sensu or Pom Pom. This one has less weaknesses. Pom Pom's a ghost type. We all know how strong ghost type stab is, and yeah, just having Covenants on all of these are pretty nice options, especially for the better Oricorio forms like Pom Pom and Sensu. Now the fire one is pretty much forced to run boots, while these ones don't have to run boots. Like you don't have a times full weakness to rock, so you could easily go Life Orb, you could go Magnet to boost your respective stab depending on which Oricorio form you've chosen. Obviously the psychic one would use Twisted Spoon, Sensu would use Spell Tag, and etc. So yeah, Oricorio Quiver Dance is going to be pretty solid. Definitely something I'll be looking out for when the lower tiers come around, because this one is gonna have a lot of fun. Like just imagine, like it's the Oricorio mirror, and like you go hard Oricorio on one of the Oricorio setting up, and then you just instantly get +1 together. Like that would be a pretty cool interaction to see. So yeah, moving on to the next Pokemon, Primeape. Now, Primeape overall just got buffed by having a new evolution called Annihilate. But at the same time, normal Primeape gets Stealth Rocks. Now, this isn't really a buff by any means. Like, I don't see how Primeape's going to fit rocks onto their moveset at all. But if you really did want to try and fit Primeape rocks, I guess you could go Stealth Rock, U-Turn, CC, and either Gunk Shot, Earthquake, or Stone Edge. Preferably Stone Edge, so you're not walled by flying type Pokemon. But at the same time, like, Stealth Rock is not necessary on a Pokemon like this, especially how Primeape's last niche it had in Gen 7 PU was pretty much Choice Scarf, and Choice Scarf Rocks isn't a set whatsoever. So yeah, Rocks Primeape, something going under the radar, but not something that it will realistically run. Now, Quagsire has all 3 hazards, obviously excluding Sticky Webs, but Spikes, T-Spikes, and Stealth Rocks. Now, like I mentioned with Gastrodon in the last video, this is pretty cool how this one finally gets, all 3 hazards. They're ground types. There isn't really that many ground types that don't get rocks, but all of these water ground types like Quagsire and Gastrodon didn't have rocks for the longest time, and they finally have it. Now, Toxic Spikes is less influential because Quagsire is one of the few Pokemon that gets Toxic as a level up move, so Toxic Spikes are less necessary, and Toxic Spikes are also just weaker generally than the other hazards, just because Poison types are able to remove them just by being grounded, if they're grounded by the way. But more Spikes and Stealth Rocks are going to be interesting. Now, overall Bulky Waters took a hit because Scald isn't in the game, so Quagsire is a lot more passive, but at the same time, 85 attack is decent enough. Running Earthquake on Quagsire has always been an option for it, so it could potentially fit recovery somewhere. Spikes, Toxic, Recover, EQ. Realistically, this is all Quagsire would need, to be honest, along with Unaware and Leftovers or Rocky Helmet, of course. But yeah, Spikes, Toxic, Recover, Earthquake. This is a solid set. You can obviously swap between Rocks and Spikes now. Unfortunately, Scold would have been nice to run, but at this point, you don't really have a really good last move that you could run. So it's either Stealth Rock or Spikes, which Quagsire now has. So yeah, that is pretty cool to see. Next up, we have Regidrago. Now, Regidrago has been a Pokemon that on paper hits very hard because it has a dragon type ability that also boosts its dragon stab again, and the fact that it actually has a decent special attack stat and attack stat of 100, so that means Regidrago, as long as it's not facing a fairy type, is a very strong Pokemon. Now, Regidrago struggled with coverage options on the special side because you literally had Draco Meteor, Dragon Energy, Dragon Pulse, and then you had Ancient Power on the special side. And then physical sets that relied on Dragon Dance only had Dragon Claw, Outrage, of course, and then like Hammer Arm or Fire Fang, preferably Fire Fang. Now it has EQ, and now it has Earth Power for the special sets. Now this is pretty good for Regidrago because Regidrago was obviously ruled by Steel types and Fairy types are immune to its stabs. Having a strong move in Earth Power, like Earth Power is 90 base power, also has a chance to drop your special defense stat, and it's a ground type move, so Steel types can't really switch into you anymore. So yeah, Regidrago is going to have a very fun time. There's even less fairies that really annoy it now, like Sylveon's still in the game, but things like Clef and the Tapus, things that in fairy types that infested Gen 8 OU aren't really going to be that common anymore in Gen 9 OU. So Regidrago could actually have a solid OU niche now. It's probably not going to stay OU, but at the same time, having a nuke like Regidrago, especially with a Choice Scarf or a Choice Spec set with like Dragon Energy, is going to be insane. So overall, Regidrago is benefiting a lot from having ground coverage now, which is pretty nice. Especially if you pair with Ancient Power, you basically have Edgequake combination plus Dragon type moves. So nothing realistically rules Regidrago anymore. So that is pretty good for it, honestly. Now, I'm spending a minimum of 20 seconds on this, but yeah, a maximum actually. But Giga Drain Sableye, why is this a thing? With 65, why is this a thing? It's insane. Why? Just why? Like, I'm not even going to spend any more time on it. It's kind of insane. But yeah, onto Salazzle. Salazzle got T-Spikes now. I'm going to tell you why this isn't really that, you know, monumental for Salazzle. It's a Pokemon that has the corrosion ability, which can poison anything, including Steel types. Why would you want to run Toxic Spikes when you can just Toxic the switching? Like, I don't really see a point for T-Spikes on Salazzle. I guess it's a nice addition, seeing how a lot of poison types were getting T-Spikes, like Muck and Swalot, as I'll speak on later. But at the same time, yeah, you just want to be running Toxic, to be honest. Unless Salazzle lost Toxic, which I am unaware of. But if I check the doc quickly, it doesn't say Salazzle lost Toxic. So yeah, just run Toxic over T-Spikes. Like, it's very, very simple. Now, moving on to Samurott, regular Samurott, not Hisuian Samurott, but regular Samurott has Draw Run now. Again, this isn't really something that's you know, monumental to Samurott whatsoever. It's more sad that it's still one of the Pokemon that get knockoff by level up. So Samurott's move pool hasn't really changed at all, but at the same time, Draw Run is not changing the game for this Pokemon whatsoever. But I guess it's a decent coverage if you want to run like SD. But yeah, Draw Run does not do anything for Samurott, but overall it's a nice move to see. Now Sandaconda gets Thunder Fang, another like weird addition to his move pool where it's not really needed. Like, when did Sandaconda ever really want to have electric coverage? Never, really. Like, Edgequake is enough for it. It has Glare that has 100% paralysis. Like, Thunderfang is not fitting onto any of Sandaconda's movesets realistically. Unless you want to run Choice Band and be like, oh, I want to hit water types for super effective damage. But Thunderfang is weaker than Earthquake, so there's no reason to run it, really. So yeah, useless move addition to Sandaconda, to be fair. Now, this one's a bit more interesting. Sawsbuck, one of my favorite normal types from the 5th generation. Always have to change it to the winter form. The winter Sawsbuck is obviously just the best Sawsbuck in general. But this thing gets Body Slam now. It gets Play Rough now. And it also gets Zen Headbutt. Now, Zen Headbutt, having that coverage to hit fighting types, which is one of your weaknesses, is pretty good. Able to hit poison types, which is also one of your weaknesses, is very nice. And yeah, Body Slam, 60% paralysis thanks to Serene Grace. With addition of SD to his move pool. So Sawsbuck is actually going to be a decent Pokemon. What really held back Sawsbuck was the fact that, you know, it was just outclassed, and you know, it was frail, weak to Mach Punch, you know, didn't really hit that hard without a Swords Dance. But the fact that you're now spreading 60% paralysis plus, you know, if you run double, no, I wouldn't even say run double like normal stab with Headbutt. Run Body Slam, Zen Headbutt, Para Flinching. Sawsbuck is going to be one of the scariest Pokemon in the lower tiers. Like, this has 95 base speed. It's not slow by any means for lower tier standards. And yeah, Sawsbuck is going to be kind of insane. Alright, next Pokemon I want to talk about now is Scyther. Now, Scyther frankly just got more nerfs than buffs, but I still just want to mention that it has CC in its move pool now from Legends of Arceus, if I recall correctly, so that's a decent option on it. But at the same time, Scyther lost access to its Roost, it lost access to Dual Wing Beat, and it lost access to Bug Bite. Now, why is Dual Wing Beat so big? Because Scyther basically had a Flying Stab that was a free Brave Bird, no recoil, and still missed. But at the same time, Dual Wing Beat was basically a free Brave Bird for Scyther, because Technician is a 1.5 times boost, 40 times 1.5 is 60, and it hits twice. So it was a recoilless Brave Bird. Now that Scyther doesn't have that, it lost a lot of what actually made it scary in the lower tiers, because Scyther got banned from PU at one point, if I also recall correctly. So Scyther was a pretty strong breaker in like NU and PU at the time of Generation 8, and now it's lost that niche that it had. It lost it, and it's a shame really, because Scyther is probably just going to drop back into obscurity now, because it does have Roost. Like, it was a bulky, even in like Gen 6 or Gen 7 lower tiers, Scyther before the existence of heavy duty boots was running Eviolite, and it was a decently bulky Pokemon, you know, and it had recovery. Now that it doesn't have that anymore, bulky Scyther is basically a non-existent set, especially if you run Eviolite and you have to worry about boots, so, I mean rocked. So at the same time, Scyther is forced to run boots now, and it also doesn't have any recovery. And it also lost its best flying type option. So yeah, Scyther took a massive hit, but CC, yay, decent buff, decent buff. But yeah, onto Sudowoodo now. We've seen in the trailers that Sudowoodo gets Trailblaze. Does this help it whatsoever? No, not really. It's still a mon that reaches only like 174 speed with a maximum speed EVs with a speed boost in nature. So Sudowoodo is still a very like arse Pokemon in general, but I guess I have to talk about Trailblaze because we saw the terrestrializing potential it had with grass types, but at the same time, yeah, Sudowoodo is still a very like bad Pokemon by, you know, normal standards. Now it has spikes now, but at the same time, I don't want to use spikes on this. There's Carbink. Like, Sudowoodo doesn't really have anything else to set it apart from any other lower tier rock type, e.g. Carbink. So I don't want to use this Pokemon realistically. Like, it's just bad, but at least it has spikes, so that gives it a decent niche wherever you want to use Sudowoodo. Maybe in SU or something, I don't know, man. Sudowoodo is kind of bad. But yeah, moving on to Swalot now, aka the worst Muck. But at least Swalot has good options now. It has Swords Dance, it got Toxic Spikes, it has Stuffed Cheeks, which is kind of interesting with Gluttony. And yeah, Stuffed Cheeks. What does that move do again? I'm gonna load up Greed, and I low-key forgot what this move does. But Stuffed Cheeks, holder must hold a berry, user eats berry, +2 defense. Okay, so that's what Stuffed Cheeks does. It was previously the signature move of Greedon, and it also has Body Press now. So is this better than Muck now? That's the real question, because that's why Swalot saw basically no usage even in the lower tiers, because Muck was just directly a better Pokemon. But if we compare them quickly, Muck still has higher special bulk, it has slightly higher HP, but Swalot is more, you know, defensive on the physical defensive side, and Muck also hits harder. So overall, Muck is still the better choice, especially now that it has Toxic Spikes. But what Swalot has over Muck is, now that it has Swords Dance, it actually has decent physical options. It has Gunk Shot, it has Earthquake, and it has Ice Punch. This is realistically what Swalot could do in the lower tiers, but it's still having a pretty bad speed issue, to be honest. Like, Swalot still has a very low speed, it still doesn't really hit relatively hard even after SD. And yeah, but in terms of that sticky hold, you know, it's still a decent ability, but you could go Gluttony, which makes it eat certain berries like the Alpapa berry or, you know, the Figgy berry at basically 50% health instead of 25% health. So that could be the niche of Swalot over Muck. Muck can't SD, but Muck can curse. Swalot can also curse, but curse Swalot is literally just worse Muck. So overall, Swalot is going to be interesting in terms of whether you want to use this over Muck and the fact if SD is actually worth running on this Pokemon. But either way, having all of these new options for it, especially with Body Press on like a physically defensive set, will be nice to see because it's able to hit steel types for a good amount of damage, more damage than its earthquakes would be doing because Swalot has higher defense than its attack. So yeah, that's interesting. Now onto another poison type. We've been talking about a decent amount of poison types today. We have Toxicroak. Now Toxicroak gets close combat now. They decided to really just give every fully evolved fighting type close combat, which I cannot complain because the longest time the issue of Toxicroak was that SD sets had a high power stabbing Gunk shot, but you had to rely on Drain Punch. Now, Drain Punch isn't a bad move by any means. You still heal your HP, which is very nice, especially for running Life Orb on Toxicroak, but at the same time, the difference between Gunk Shot and Drain Punch is just noticeable. Too noticeable. If you needed to kill something or you're fighting stab that resists poison, Drain Punch just was not cutting it. Now with CC, Toxicroak shouldn't really be missing out on any KOs that was missing before Drain Punch, just because, you know, 120 stab versus 75 stab is pretty big. Like, Toxicroak will miss the the active recovery of Drain Punch healing, but at the same time, damage is always important for a Pokemon like Toxicroak, especially if it's trying to set up a Swords Dance. Now, I was gonna say there's no space, but at the same time, Sucker Punch, like, Toxicroak is very, very strong now thanks to Swords Dance. Now, it was never a PU Pokemon by any means. Now with CC, it could be potentially RU, NU. It just hits a lot harder now and can use that actually good attack stat to his advantage, especially with two very high base power stabs like Gunk Shot and Close Combat. So yeah, overall Toxicroak is enjoying these changes. Now onto another poison type, the fourth poison type of this video actually. We have Toxtricity. Now Toxtricity is a lot better than the Pokemon I just talked about. Toxtricity still has the likes of Shift Gear, Boom Burst and Overdrive, so it hits very, very hard on the special side. But if you want to tap into the support utility or the defensive utility of Toxtricity, it now has Toxic Spikes. Now, I don't think Toxtricity really wants to be running Toxic Spikes. There's gonna be better, you know, Toxic Spike setters, e.g. Quillfish, e.g. Muck, even, e.g. Quagsire. So, like, Toxic Spikes really does not affect the viability of Toxtricity too much. It still wants to run the sets that it was known to run in the first place, whether that's Throat Chop, you know, Shift Gear, or just running specs in general. But yeah, Toxic Spikes is an interesting addition, but is not one that Toxtricity really needed in general. But yeah, on to the last Pokemon of the video, guys. We have Tropius. Now, Tropius has been a shitter for most of its career. Like, it's a mon that isn't that bulky, isn't that strong, even with a Dragon Dance option at his disposal. And yeah, it's just generally outclassed as a bulky grass type. But now it has some interesting moves up his arsenal. It has Body Press now, which again, like, Tropius isn't the most bulkiest Pokemon, so I don't know how well it's going to be utilizing Body Press that well. It has Hurricane now, which is kind of interesting for its offensive sets, but at the same time, Tropius is not an offensive Pokemon. And it also has U-Turn now, so it has a pivoting option. Now, that is something I can get behind, because Tropius still has Roost, you know, unless it lost Roost. I don't think it lost Roost. Yeah, so it didn't lose Roost. So having a bulky pivot like grass type sounds okay on paper. It sounds okay. It doesn't have the most useful abilities if you're running boots, like I guess Harvest, like Leech Seed, like that's what Tropius is really known for. But at the same time, boots to avoid, you know, hazards is always something that Rock Weak Pokemon wants. But having U-Turn, decent pivoting option, but I don't think this would really save Tropius too much. There's still just better grass types to use in general, even in the lower tiers. And yeah, its Dragon Dance sets didn't get any better. Like it has Dragon Dance and it has good coverage, but it just doesn't hit hard enough. And that's what Tropius's issue is. It's just is a jack of all trades in speech mark, jack of all trades, but master of none. Is not a master of anything. Even Leech Seed, is what is like not even the best at what it does. It's just the fate of Tropius with the stats that it has. But at least they tried and they cared about Tropius. They gave it the best special flying move, and they also gave it a pivoting move in U-turn. So you know what? I can't complain at all. Okay, guys, that is part 2 of our lower tier Pokemon buffs for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Make sure to subscribe and like this video, and stay tuned for the next part where we have part 3. It's going to be the shortest part. We don't have that many Pokemon left, so hopefully you're still along for the ride. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next part. Peace.